Hey, everybody, welcome. It is week 4, and we are going to do our not so micro lecture for week 4. So let's get to it. Let me share my screen. Okay. We don't need to see my email or anything else on my screen. Here we go. All right. Sorry for that delay. Okay, so here we are, and not so micro lecture this week is focusing on moving from the outline to actually writing the literature review. And this sounds like it's the next logical step. It is the next logical step, but sometimes it can be a little bit trickier than it sounds. So, and it's also the lengthiest step that you have done in terms of the writing piece. Looking for articles in that first week and annotated bibliographies, or in week 2, probably took you a good amount of time, but we haven't spent this much time writing. All right, so this is the actual process that we are following. So identify the problem or question, which we already know those are prescribed in this course. And then searching for the literature you've already completed, annotated bibliography, developing the literature review outline. All of these steps are already completed. So we are here at writing the literature review draft. You can see it's very cyclical, that you may have to go around maybe another time when you're really tweaking what you're doing. For this course, we're not going to be going multiple rounds in the circle here. However, once we complete this process and get to this circle, you will actually do this over again for the week 6 assignment. But this is our next step, writing the literature review draft. Okay, so review section headings. This is my note to you to say, please review section headings. I did make notes in the week 3 feedback for the outlines, but make sure that you are looking at the APA manual, the style guide, make sure you look at them. I did include the fonts here, just as kind of a precursor to this slide. This is what is acceptable. If you're more familiar with previous editions of APA or the APA manual, you didn't have as much choice or font choice, which is kind of nice because now you can use a font that makes you happy, as long as you're using the correct font size for that font. So you can see the font sizes and the fonts. Do not use fonts outside of these. I'm not specifically looking for this in this course, but I felt like it was important to mention, seeing we're talking about headings because they kind of go hand in hand. So this is what your heading structure should look like. So you have your research question or your title, and the research question can serve as your title. That's fine. And for this course, I don't mind whether you do it in each important word or major word in the first letter being caps, or if you just put it in regular sentence question form, that's fine. I don't particularly care about that for this course. Just know later, that will be something you'll pay attention to, but you're going to have your title. It is basically done in the same format as a level 1 heading. However, your title does not serve as your first heading for the work. So you have your title, and then you'll have your first level 1 heading. And then from there, each subsequent heading will cascade down from here. You can have multiple level 1 headings. Basically, all of your major section titles are level 1. And then if you have subsections, you're probably at level 2. Most people for this assignment, you're not going to be at level 3 or below. If you are, that's fine. Just make sure you're following what it should look like. Any questions on this slide?
I have a quick question, actually. So if we're doing the literature review for this week and we have our research question as the title, what would the level 1 heading be? Would that be the first topic? And then the level 2 heading would be the individual articles, or would we just kind of skip the level 1 heading and go straight into the level 2 heading?
Okay, so it depends how your outline was set up, or if you need to adjust your outline. But basically, let's say that we are going to talk about types of trees in this section. So our RQ has something to do with, which trees grow better in LA. And so our first level heading would be types of trees, and that would be here. And then we might have a section on oak trees and talk about those, and maple trees and talk about those, and palm trees and talk about those. Each one of those would be a level 2 heading with their little blurb underneath it. Let's say the next section after types of trees is, fruits and berries produced from various trees. And then you start over. Level 1, that's a level 1, and then acorns, coconuts, whatever it might be, those would each be level 2 headings. Within those, let's say that there are, I'm making this up, but 3 types of coconuts. Under your level 2 heading for coconuts, you might have coconut type A as level heading 3, coconut type B as level heading 3, and C as heading level 3 as well. Because in each of those, you're going to explain to us what those types of coconuts are.
Got it. Yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. And just to give you another piece of information on this, when you have a title and then your first heading, you don't need anything in between. I mean, spacing, but you don't need content. But you don't want to have what we call stacked headings. So a stacked heading would be, you have your level 1 that says types of trees, and then immediately you have maple trees listed here. You want to have kind of an intro little blurb. It only has to be 3 sentences or so. I mean, it doesn't have to be a long paragraph, but you don't want to have stacked headings. I did make notes of that on the week 3 outlines. So it's, am I going to take off points for that? No, but it's something I want you to start being aware of, because this is something that we're finding when students get to their dissertation work, they're still doing this. And then they have to go back in and add the little blurbs. So just keep that in mind. If you have a heading, you should always have content before your next heading. All right, any other questions here? All right.
And just a really quick question. The RQ title, is that bulls also?
Yeah, so this, okay, these are actually, that's a really, the title, yes, is typically bold. And then I just wanted to be sure I had all these the way, yeah, okay, I do have them the way they go. I don't have them in the right size fonts, but I do have them in the format that they go into. So, and you can see not only the headings, but where does the content start? So if this is in the middle, your first paragraph, make sure, that has to be indented, but it does start at the left justified margin, and then the first line is indented. Same thing here, your heading is left justified. Your text begins usually below it, but again, indented because the first line is indented. Level 3, it's the same thing, just that this is italicized. Levels 4 and 5 are a little bit different. You're actually putting the heading at the indentation. So where you would normally indent your paragraph, you're going to put your heading, and then your text just begins right after that, as if it was a continuation of the line, except that the heading piece is bold. And same thing with level 5, except that it's bold and italicized. Moving on. So synthesize your section points. This is something that some of you attempted to kind of write some of your sections on the outline. Some of you did well, some of you need a little bit more practice with this. If I wrote that note to you on the outline, you didn't need to synthesize for the outline, but if I may have said something like, make sure that you're synthesizing these points into the paragraph so that, for the article review, that's how you have to do it. We'll talk a little bit more about synthesizing in a minute, but basically you're trying to develop a cohesive paragraph, and then whether that paragraph's in a subsection, a section, or the entire work, everything needs to kind of flow very smoothly and be cohesive. I've given you two resources here. These universities actually have great sites all about different processes in writing the lit review or the dissertation, but these two specific pages go right to their step for synthesizing, and they give examples. There's a lot of great information there. So I've provided those for you there. But we can take a look here. So what do you want to do when you're synthesizing? You want to combine your points into cohesive paragraphs, which is what I just said. You want to use connected language, which we talked about last week, to be able to connect the same or points from the same source without just using the same kind of citation sentence after sentence after sentence. You want to have that varied by connected language. You want to use transitional language to make sure that you're easing that transition from one source to the other. So when you move between sources, you have to have some kind of transitional language. Otherwise, it just becomes a stacked, a stack of points in sentences. So what we don't want to do is produce a series of article reviews. Sarah, I think when you asked your question, something you said, the way you phrased it, made me think that there could be, that going down the road of article reviews a little bit. This is not meant to be in a section. So if we're going back to our trees in the maple tree section, it's not meant to be what did Smith say about maple trees, then what did Johnson say about maple trees, and then what did Jones say about maple trees. It is meant to be about maple trees, all the information that we want to relay to the reader, and we're using points from all our sources intertwined and infused together so that it creates cohesion, as opposed to Smith said, whoever I said, Johnson said, Jones said. You want to have it, again, using the transitional language to connect one to the other, because otherwise it just becomes article review, article review, or point from one, point from another, point from another, or points from the same source, just basically listed, but potentially in sentence form. So you want to avoid anything that looks like a list or a series of points or article reviews. And then you're only using direct quotes when you absolutely have to. If you were to paraphrase it, it would take away the integrity of the quote, or it wouldn't mean the same thing. Then you can use a quote. For the work that you guys are doing, 6 pages or so, one, maybe 2, maybe 1, they're not a must. So only use them if you have to. And I would say no more than 2 in something that's about 6 pages. Questions here?
So, hey, it's Adam Bonaker. How are you?
Fine, thanks, Adam. Go ahead.
I guess what's your view, and also maybe, and if somehow it goes a little bit awry from true APA on, I don't think I did this in this course. I think it was in my paper for the last course, where basically 2 authors or 2 sources are agreeing, but you want to give a little more emphasis. And I'm pretty sure I did it right in the last course, and you can tell if I didn't. Like I still summarized. I didn't direct quote. I summarized kind of what they said that was similar, and then I cited both of them at the end of that, like couples. Okay, so all right.
Yeah, when you're doing coursework like this, especially this particular assignment, because you're not going to have maybe a ton of sources that say the same thing, because you were trying to find, articles that kind of went together, but you have different points. But because you put all of the sources, the points from, all of the points from each source that went together into each section, it's very possible that 2 or more of them said the same thing, and that's okay. You can paraphrase what they said, make a summary of it, and then, or, if it's parenthetical or narrative at the beginning, but either way, cite all the ones that it applies to, or that the sources apply to the information. So great question. Absolutely. If it makes sense, go ahead and put in more than one source for whatever piece of information. What I wouldn't want to see is a section that is kind of written, and then every citation is all the sources for that section. That typically, if it happens in one section, that's fine, but typically that means that it's not being synthesized and something's not right. It's not connecting the right way. So I wouldn't want to see that, but certainly more than one citation is fine. All right, so your words, their thoughts. This is probably one of the most difficult aspects of academic writing or doctoral work. Students come in, you guys are experts in your fields. You've been, working in your industries usually for a good amount of time. You know your stuff. We're asking you to pretty much parallel your coursework with your industry knowledge and kind of make this make sense for something in your world. But then we're saying, hey, but wait a minute, we don't really want to know what you think. We want to know what you think in a discussion and certainly in a reflection, but not in a literature review. There are different views on this. Some literature reviews are okay with inserting opinion or your interpretation of the work. But really what we want to see is, what did other people say about this topic? You are the relayer of the information. You are not telling us what you know about it or, anything from your experience. You're just saying, hey, I read these articles and here's what these people say about this. So it's a little bit tricky sometimes. And so it's your words because you're paraphrasing what they said, but their thoughts, what they presented in their publications. Any questions or thoughts on this? So these next slides are just duplicates of what I had in last week because they still apply, they're still important, and I want to make sure that for the literature review, we didn't forget about these. So I'm not going to spend time here. I'll just click through them to let you know that they are here in case you need a refresher on these items. And that's it. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Any last questions on the slides before I stop recording?
Just one question. There's no expectation to have a hypothesis for the research questions?
No.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Just making sure.
In different courses, we're kind of pulling at different pieces of what you'll need to put all together later, but there's not room in every course to try to look at every different aspect. So in this course, we're not doing that, but thank you for asking. I'm going to stop the recording.